I am so excited to make 2025 the very best year in our state's history.
Tonight, we are exploring the priorities we can expect to see as the legislative session gets underway.
Session started today with Governor Stitt's State of the State address as he shared his plans to make Oklahoma a top 10 state for business. Fox 25's Capitol reporter Paige Taylor has a breakdown of his biggest talking points, plus reaction from lawmakers.
I'm here to tell you, the state of our state is the strongest it's ever been, and we're not done yet.
Governor Stitt outlining several priorities on the first day of the legislative session. He touched on everything from tax cuts and flat budgets to education and business. Last session, the legislature passed a grocery sales tax cut. Stitt is calling on lawmakers to pass an income tax cut this session and called for flat budgets.
And as we begin this new session, we're going to be faced with many good ideas. The greatness of our state depends on discipline and the willingness to set the right priorities, even when it's difficult.
The governor also announcing the launch of KOKH to focus on flat budgets and limiting government. He also talked about education in Oklahoma and highlighted the need to get phones out of the classrooms.
I want to challenge the legislature, school districts all across the state, to consider ways to make cell phone-free schools a reality for all students. It doesn't have to cost anything. It just needs to be effective for the students we serve.
House Minority Leader Cindy Munson responding to the governor's State of the State address on Monday afternoon.
Overall, all that we heard in Stitt's State of the State address this afternoon, again, not a surprise. We prefer that he focus on working Oklahomans, working families, working on the things that we know are the issues that people are talking about at their dining room tables. They're talking about how do we pay rent? How do we make ends meet? How do we ensure that our kids have access to childcare? And how do we make sure our public education system is supported and protected?
Paige Taylor, Fox 25 News.
We got your back fact-checking two claims the governor made during his address. Here's what he said about the national debt.
Now we are spending a quarter of our federal income, 25%, to make interest-only payments on our national debt.
25%, a number we can check into. We found out that this is in fact true. According to the Peter G. Peterson Foundation, the total federal budget for the year 2024, $6.75 trillion. We spent a record $1.75 trillion on interest payments, comes out to about 25%. Now, during his address, Governor Stitt also claimed Oklahoma fourth in the nation for education freedom. We looked into this. This one actually partially true. According to the Alex Index for State Education Freedom, they do rank Oklahoma as fourth, but the Heritage Foundation's report card ranks Oklahoma 13th.
The governor in his speech today said burdensome court costs, fees, and fines can amount to a kind of debtor's prison. Governor Kevin Stitt wants Oklahoma to bring in reform so those leaving prison can have a better shot at success. Fox 25's Tom Ferguson has more insight tonight. He is live at the state capitol. Tom, how much money are we talking here?
Wendy, the governor shared the story of a man who's still dealing with tens of thousands of dollars worth of court fines and fees. We sat down with John Stanfield to learn more about how change could help prevent repeat offending and more. As lawmakers welcomed the governor for his annual State of the State address on Monday, one Oklahoma man got a special shout out.
John is with us here today. John, thank you for letting me tell and share your story with everyone.
John Stanfield has turned his life around, pivoting from prison to a standing ovation at the Oklahoma State Capitol and a position at the Center for Social Innovation at OSU OKC, where he now works.
It was surreal today.
But crippling court costs have hung over him as he's built a new life.
Nobody could tell me exactly how much money I owe. And they kept on sending me to different places, so I'm not sure what I owe.
Stanfield says he spent more than 15 years in prison for various charges involving firearms, drug trafficking, and police evasion. He left prison in April 2022. Stanfield says his court and jail stay fees were at one point about $200,000 to $300,000. He now estimates them to be closer to $40,000.
And logically, how is a person going to pay that, especially if they're in poverty? it's just not set up to really help people get out of that situation. It's set up to keep people stuck.
Advocates from the Fines and Fees Justice Center are highlighting multiple pieces of newly filed legislation to bring reform.
Make sure that a second chance is actually a second chance and get rid of these fines, fees, and court costs for good.
The Fines and Fees Justice Center and Oklahomans for Criminal Justice Reform are applauding the governor's efforts. We'll have those organizations' full statements posted on our website, okcfox.com. Now it's up to lawmakers here to see if any proposed bills on this issue get approved. Live at the Capitol, Tom Ferguson, Fox 25 News.
Senate President pro tempore Lonnie Paxton shares his thoughts on the governor's address, saying he agrees with the governor's plan and shares his commitment to growing the state's economy. He says this session, the Senate looks forward to working alongside the governor and the House to advance policies to strengthen our workforce. House Speaker Kyle Hilbert also sharing his reaction to the governor's address. He says he's in support of the governor's plans and championed his stance towards banning phones in schools. Hilbert says the state has a lot of challenges ahead, but they're united in wanting to make the state better for future generations.
Well, during his State of the State address, Governor Stitt announced a new executive order creating the Oklahoma Department of Government Efficiency. According to the governor, KOKH will build upon past efficiency initiatives and focus on eliminating wasteful government spending and ensuring your tax dollars are being used effectively across the government. This order also creates the position of Chief KOKH Advisor, who will report directly to Governor Stitt, but that person has not yet been named. KOKH will be required to submit a report outlining its strategies and budget findings by the end of March.
Organizations gathered outside the state capitol ahead of Governor Stitt's address today to protest for human rights. LGBTQ+ and immigrant causes at the forefront of the rally, with organizers saying they believe their constitutional rights are under attack.
Do you remember that every person that is in this vicinity and across this state, that regardless of their position, that they are your neighbor?
There were counter-protesters in attendance and a minor altercation reported. Police say deputies got involved and broke it up without incident. An Oklahoma bill filed recently promises new tax incentives to couples once they're married, but Fox 25's Jameson Kiefover finds there could be legal and safety implications after they say I do.
Senate Bill 228, or the Covenant Marriage Act, is a bill introduced by Senator Dusty Deevers that claims to strengthen the institution of marriage and to promote religious freedom. The Oklahoma couple would sign a declaration of intent, promising before God that they've received premarital counseling, and in return, the couple would receive a tax credit of up to $2,500. Those incentives come with restrictions, though. The bill outlines only 3 reasons a couple could seek divorce: abandonment by a spouse for at least a year, physical or sexual abuse, or adultery. But in that case, the couple would need to seek counseling before divorce proceedings. We discovered Senator Dusty Deevers' Marriage Covenant Act has many similarities to a bill he filed last legislative session. This bill would have set strict standards on anyone trying to get a divorce in Oklahoma. Now, that bill stalled out, but we're told by legal experts that this new bill would still have implications for anyone trying to get a divorce in Oklahoma.
It really could slow down the process for everyone, not just for folks who are opting into this covenant marriage option.
Katie Dilks is the executive director of the Oklahoma Access to Justice Foundation, a nonprofit that through a study last August found access to divorce is already restricted for Oklahomans. The foundation's research found that increasing access to divorce would decrease domestic violence by 30%.
We already have the highest rates of domestic violence in the country and some of the highest rates of women being murdered by their spouses.
Out of every state, Oklahoma ranks highest for domestic violence, with an average of 114 domestic homicides every year. Advocates who help some of the most vulnerable individuals get out of unsafe marriages say this bill could make those situations even more dangerous.
Last year, we helped over 5,000 individuals, and we serve anything.
Kim Garrett Funk is the founder of Palomar, a nonprofit connecting community partners and agencies to families and victims of violence.
If you look at domestic violence, there's an array of power and control that's exhibited in violent homes. So it's not just physical and sexual. That can be in some of them, but it's very common that there's emotional and psychological abuse, financial abuse, isolation, abuse of children and pets, things like that. It's a whole sphere of different types of violence that is implemented on survivors. And so this bill is dangerous because it only acknowledges two very limited types of domestic violence.
Since opening in 2017, she said one of the most requested services is civil legal assistance, because in financially abusive situations, the victim can't access money to hire an attorney and fight in court to leave. Under the proposed bill, that would not warrant a divorce.
And there are things that our legislature could be doing to increase financial resources for families and give them a better pathway to not seeking divorce.
The Judiciary and Revenue Committees will be the first to review the bill at the Capitol. For Fox 25 News, I'm Jamison Kiefover.
We reached out to Senator Devers several times to discuss the bill. We did not hear back.
One piece of legislation up for consideration this session is House Bill 1343. This would entirely abolish the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, requiring all duties and powers to go to the Department of Corrections. Representative J.J. Humphrey wrote this bill despite the fact that he did sign on to a lawsuit against the State Department of Corrections just last week for allegedly covering up details in the death of an inmate. If passed, this bill would take effect July 1st. And that was your big story breakdown tonight. You can read more about the covenant marriage bill and find the governor's full State of the State address on OKCFox.com. Plus, check out all of our previous big story breakdowns on our YouTube channel.